Hello everyone. Welcome to HV Desai Eye Hospital's postgraduate webinar series. Today's topic is designing a research proposal, necessary basics.
Dr. Suchita Kulkarni serves as a Director of Clinical Services and also heads the Department of Retina and ROP Services at HV Desai Eye Hospital, Pune. She has completed her training in Retina at Arvind Eye Care Systems and training in ROP at LVPEI, Hyderabad. She has also received training in Public Health at London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. She has multiple publications in renowned peer-reviewed journals and has also received numerous regional and national awards.
At the outset, let me tell you that I'm going to give you simple examples for better understanding of various concepts. So let us start with a very fundamental question of why write a research proposal? And the simplest answer to this is to get an answer to questions. While we are engaged in our clinical practice several times, often questions come to our mind for which we want to find an answer, and this can be an initial process towards designing a research protocol. Secondly, to allow scientific scrutiny, whether what we are doing in clinical practice is good enough to get an answer to that. We can plan a research proposal. Here is an example. Is trabeculectomy really effective in reducing intraocular pressures, and how long does it remain effective? Thirdly, to communicate with collaborators. Sometimes the research topics are such that you might find it difficult to get an adequate sample size, or the topic is so broad that one requires multiple experts to work on it, and collaborative research is one of the best ways to get an information through implementing a research by involving several experts. And lastly, to find funding. So there are two approaches for identifying a topic. Self-initiated or bottom-up approach is when the topic of interest comes to a researcher's mind, and he or she wants to plan a research to get an answer. And top-down approach or commissioned research arises out of policy or public health problem, and contemporary easiest example is COVID-19 vaccine trials. We don't know, COVID-19 has become a problem of major public health concern, and that is why research has been commissioned to various institutes to carry out these vaccine trials. How to get research ideas? Basically, think critically over a topic of your interest. Look for uncertainties in existing practice. So again, one more example could be, is hydroxychloroquine effective in prevention or treatment of COVID-19? Now, there is no enough evidence to either prove or disprove this statement. So one can plan a research to find out this. Then challenge accepted ideas. Example I would like to give here is PHECO and SICS. General convention is that PHECO is better than SICS. So one can question this hypothesis and plan a research. Basically, when you're planning a research, read about other studies and ask simple questions such as, why did they do it that way? What scope is there for further research? Could research methods be improved? And use your imagination to explore the topic. Now, few important considerations regarding a research question. Research question should be an important one, should not already been answered. To give you an example, is pseudoexfoliation associated with glaucoma? Is this an important question? Yes, it is. Has it been answered already? Yes, it has been answered already. So it doesn't make sense to plan a research to study this topic. Secondly, what are the cost and resource implications of a topic? I would like to give you an example of a research on, say, uveal melanoma in India. And the funding required for this research is $2 million US. Does it make sense to invest $2 million US to study uveal melanoma in Indian population where it is a rare disease? We have several other high priority diseases for which this funding could be used. And lastly, is the research idea likely to be implementable? Is it a feasible idea? So example could be lenticular changes in human beings when they are on Mars. So is it a feasible idea? No, it is not. And lastly, I would like to give you this simple example in our day-to-day practice. Do patients operated for cataract need to make 3 visits to ensure good visual outcome after surgery? So is this question important? Yes, it is, because it does make a difference to a patient when he has to come 3 times versus when he or she has to come once. Has it been answered? No. As far as my best knowledge, it has not been answered yet. What are the cost and resource implications? It's not a very costly research and does not require a lot of resources. And is it feasible? Yes, it is feasible. So few important terminologies before you plan a research, and these are very important when you are planning dissertation. Variable. Variable is nothing but characteristics of study population. So there are various types of variables. Exposure is, other word for exposure is independent variables. These are the risk factors. And outcome is dependent variable. Outcome is nothing but outcome of a researcher's interest in a study. So I would like to elaborate this further using an example. Let us consider the example that we discussed in previous slide, association of pseudoexfoliation and glaucoma. So what are the variables that could be collected for this study? They could be general variables such as age, gender, family history, and specific variables such as presence of pseudoexfoliation, intraocular pressure, CD ratio, angle measurement, presence of diabetes mellitus. So among these variables, what are the exposures or independent variables? So the risk factors for glaucoma, PXF is one of them, of course, and other risk factors are exposures in this study, and outcome of interest is glaucoma. And you can define glaucoma before you plan the study. So what are the broad types of research studies? Qualitative study and quantitative study. So quantitative study is the most commonly practiced type of study. So in quantitative study, numbers are data. Data is always collected in these studies in a pre-designed form and analyzed using a statistical software. I will elaborate this further in next slide. So when you plan to summarize a research, it has to be summarized in a PICOT format, where P stands for population. So what are the subjects enrolled in your study? Intervention is what intervention or treatment is being planned. Comparison is what is the reference group for comparison in a particular study. And outcome is what exactly will be measured. T stands for duration of data collection, that is time. Let me elaborate this further using an example. So the research question that we can take to give you an example is, what are the risk factors for development of cataract in young adults? Now, what is the population of interest for this study? Young adults. And you can define young adults as, say, age group between 18 and 50 years with cataract. So population of interest is young adults with cataract. Are we planning any intervention for this study? No, no intervention is required. You are just collecting data from the population of interest to get an information. So no intervention is being planned. What is the comparison group or reference group? So for this particular study, reference group could be young adults without cataract. So you would want to compare young adults with cataract against young adults without cataract. And what is the outcome? What will be measured? Odds ratio for development of cataract in affected group. So comparison between unaffected and affected group. And time could be, say, 1 year or 2 years with exact month and date, month and year. So for this particular study, what are the likely variables that need to be collected? Again, I'm just going to give you a few examples. There can be many more variables that could be collected for this study. Age, gender, history of smoking. Now, how do you collect information of this particular variable? It could be in two forms, whether history present or not, that is yes or no, or history of smoking could be graded by number of cigarettes smoked per day. Exposure to sunlight could be another variable. Again, yes and no, or it could be graded by number of hours spent outside every day. Then third variable could be episodes of severe dehydration in past 2 years. And you can again grade these episodes into various categories such as 0, 1 to 2, 3 to 5, or more than 5. And type and grade of cataract, and of course, visual acuity. Now, please note that the data collected in this particular study is in the number format or numerical format. That is why this type of study is called as quantitative study. The second type of study is qualitative study. This is a new type of research which is emerging rapidly as a popular way of collecting information on, complicated and intermingled topic. So data in these studies is in word format or texts. Data is not in numerical format. And how this is conducted is, it is implemented through observations or interviews with the population of interest or group discussions to get their views on a topic of interest. In this type of study, one selects a group of people purposively to elicit themes associated with a topic of interest. And this interview or group discussion or observation can bring out complicated intermingled factors which cannot be elicited in numerical format. I would like to explain it by giving a simple example. HV Desai group carried out this particular study to get an information on impact of childhood blindness on families, wherein mothers of children who had gone blind in early infancy were interviewed, and the themes that came out of these interviews were poverty, developmental delay of the child, social isolation of the family, disrupted husband-wife relationship, and several emotional and behavioral issues of the child. So do you think these themes could have been quantified? Can you quantify a disruption of a husband-wife relationship, or can you quantify an emotional impact on the child as well as on the mother? No, it is very difficult to quantify this. So this is why we elicited this information using a qualitative approach. Now, most of the clinicians would be involved in quantitative study. So just a brief information on various study designs. Depending on whether one plans intervention or not, the study could be either interventional or observational. So if an intervention is being planned, then whether there is going to be a random allocation of the intervention or not will decide whether it is going to be a randomized control trial or non-randomized control trial. Now, coming to observational studies, again, if in an observational study there is going to be a comparison group, then it could be either case control, cohort, or cross-sectional study. If there is not going to be any comparison group, then it could be just cohort or cross-sectional study. What are the components of a research protocol? Let us start with title. Try to keep a title very short and simple. At the same time, ensure the title of your study gives enough information for the reader to know what exactly did you implement in your research. Then next comes the names of investigators, and this should be decided well in advance before your paper goes for submission for publication, and the order of the investigator needs to be decided well in advance. Principal investigator or first author of the paper is naturally the one who has carried out most work for any particular research. Then comes summary or abstract. This should be in a structured format in a broad framework encompassing purpose, methods, results, and conclusion. So summary or abstract is something like a trailer of a movie. It should be very precise and not missing any important information. Your abstract will decide whether a reader is going to read the paper further or not. And if you're planning to write a research proposal to get a research grant, then it does make sense to also write a lay summary. Lay summary should be understandable for people who are not subject experts or who don't have much knowledge on the topic of interest. So one key to write a simple lay summary is to make it understandable to a, say, 10-year-old child. So that is the kind of language one should use in writing a lay summary. Next is background, or introduction. So start with general introduction of the topic, then present gaps in the current knowledge. Gaps is nothing but aspect of a particular topic on which there is no enough evidence. So when you present the gaps in current knowledge, indicate how you're going to address these gaps through your study. Present a pilot study if it was done to prove that this study is feasible, and then predict how your results are going to support policy making or to solve, to benefit a patient population. Then comes aims and objectives. Aims is nothing but broad purpose of your study, and objectives is basically how you're planning to achieve this aim. These are nothing but action points. Remember that objectives should be SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. And one should not have more than 3 to 5 objectives for a study. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult and tedious to conduct a study. Then what kind of design you are planning? What is your study design? Then how subjects are going to be recruited or sampling of the subjects. And next is methodology, materials and method. Again, in materials and methods, you must define various terminologies that you plan to include in your research proposal. To give you an example, say one is planning to do a research on patients with advanced cataract. So what is your definition of advanced cataract for your study? And remember, this definition could be different than a clinical definition. Then have a plan for data analysis ready before when you're planning the research. So create dummy tables to get a clear idea as to what are your exposure or independent variables and what are the dependent variables. Identify what statistical tests are you going to use to analyze your data. And for this purpose, one needs to have a statistician on board right from the planning stage. Then focus on sample size and ensure that your sample size is sufficient enough to give reliable results. It doesn't make sense to carry out a whole study and in the end coming out with results which are not reliable because your sample size was too short. That is huge wastage of resources and time. Also think what are the likely problems that can come on in your way when you are implementing the research. Identify all potential problems and also a fallback plan if such problems occur during the study. If also think of whether you have personal expertise or personal skills to carry out this study in a particular institute. Do you have technical facilities available? Whether resources are justified? Is budget for your study reasonable? And what are the breakdown costs of a particular study? And one of the most important aspect of planning a research is ethical aspect. Never implement a research without getting institutional ethics committee approval. And role of ethics committee basically is to ensure patient safety and that the best interest of the patient is not compromised. So ensure that you obtain a written informed consent from a patient. Patient's personal data such as name, address, etc., is kept confidential. It should not be shared even with the statistician, and this data needs to be protected and get an approval before you start the study. Also have a timetable ready as to various milestones or key achievements in your study, such as when do you want to finish planning the study, when do you want to collect data, when do you want to start analyzing the data, and then when do you want to write the manuscript for publication. And lastly, think about dissemination strategies. How do you plan to disseminate the information or findings of your study to potential users? And potential users could be your colleagues, professional colleagues such as ophthalmologists, policymakers such as government officials, and never forget population of interest. If you have, say, carried out a research on patients with cataract, it is your moral duty to, and if your research has come out with some important finding, it is one's moral duty to disseminate this information among population of interest, that is people at risk of developing cataract. Now, when you're writing a paper, finally, after completing a research, how do you present a study? So broad framework is called as IMRAD format: introduction, materials and methods, results, and discussion. This is how you present your study in a written format. This is my last slide. Let us quickly revise the important steps in designing a research protocol. Start with framing a research question. And when you're doing this, do a lot of literature research to what are the gaps in existing knowledge. Now, when you're doing literature research, also read about these terminologies, which I'm not going to elaborate upon for lack of time, but read about truncation, Boolean operators, mesh terms, etc. Once you localize the gaps in existing knowledge, think how your research question can answer those gaps. Think about what study design is most suitable for your research question, and what are going to be your methods for data collection, analysis, plan, etc. And start writing a proposal. And never forget to involve a statistician at this stage, because after completing the research, when you are discussing analysis with the statistician, unless he was on board from the planning stage, it will be difficult to get your point across to a statistician. Thank you for watching this. In case you have any doubts, you can get back to me on my email. Thank you very much.